Hello and welcome to another Craft Monday on a Tuesday. My name is Teague. This is the third stream we're doing together
The third one,
about,
yeah. Or it's the
about
third
craft
craft
books.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, we're streamed plenty of times, but somehow we just keep getting back to streaming about craft books, and I'm so happy to be joined by one of the absolute legends in my community, at least, Malin. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Sorry that I've literally just gotten out of the shower, so I look like this.
I mean, I have a static mic, so oh God, Anna, eat a bag of dicks. I struggle with this backstage too. I don't know what's going on. I'm just a baby. Let me see if I can fix it. Can I just go into my StreamYard? Reduce mic background noise. Is that doing anything?
Oh, wait, say more?
Je m'appelle Stig, j'habite à Norvège.
It's definitely helping. I feel like it's
Okay.
gone way down, like probably 10%.
Okay. 400?
10%?
Let me know, Nuff, if this is working, Anna. Anyway, we're not here to talk about my technical difficulties. We're here to talk about a craft book, and the craft book in particular is this bad boy, the Psychology Workbook for Writers by Darian Smith. We both read it, presumably, I think.
Yeah, look, I have tabs.
Oh, you have tabs. I just have a Notion document filled with notes.
Nice.
That's my new tabs.
Normally I do
yeah.
that, but not this time. Because I read it on a train.
She's a skinny legend, not very thick, but she had a lot of stuff in it, really.
Yeah.
It's written by Darian Smith. He's
condensed.
New Zealand author, ?
Yeah.
He lives in New Zealand at least.
Yeah.
He has a bachelor's degree in psychology with a double major in like English literature or something. A counseling diploma.
Fiction writer, yeah.
A prize-winning fiction writer. So who better to tell us about the psychology of writers than Mrs. Darian Smith? So, tools for creating realistic characters and conflict in fiction.
And I think this was a suggested books. When we were asking for more craft books ideas, someone in the
This was
comments.
suggested by Kelly alongside a plethora of other craft books that I've plotted down. So at one point in time,
we are lazy bitches, and we looked at the size of that one, and we're like, this one.
I'll take that one. My thought process was that I'm doing NaNoWriMo, so I need a skinny book, but I'm not doing NaNoWriMo, so I could have just gotten away with a regular side craft book.
Yes, but also I generally feel like that is more useful to my arsenal as a writer than some other suggestions that may be less what I need right now to learn, if that makes sense. So that was also a good one.
Yeah. This is the first character book that I've read. Because I'm usually, I guess Story Genius is a little bit about character.
Story Genius is probably half character book, no?
But it's like a plotting book, I feel like, but a character-driven plot.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas this was just purely characters. The book is divided into, into tiny chapters that all present a little theory in psychology. Some of them I even heard about. Some of them I did in school myself. There was even the Myers-Briggs test was in here. It was like, oh, I know her.
It's so funny because I have not very many, but I have a couple of blue tabs, which means stuff that I'm never going to use or don't care about or whatever. And I have a blue tab on the Myers-Briggs test because it was like, everyone does that test is actually bullshit. I mean, it's fun, but it's not.
I mean, what is psychology? It's just it's bullshit, but it's fun. No, just kidding. But yeah, he also goes into depth about how did he phrase it? Like the difference between a therapist and a writer, because this book is written from a therapist's point of view, but it's about characters. So a writer, a therapist are working to help people, and a writer is creating issues for people. So
it's literally my favorite sentence of the whole book. It's at the very beginning, and he's like, the focus here will be on creating trouble, not fixing it.
Yes. which I didn't really appreciate because I'm someone who needs specific struggles for my characters.
Well,
Uh,
it's so funny because I can just imagine the amount of people. I don't know if this is like a republished book, like if it's got several,
yeah, I
print,
don't. There were
but
some pretty modern.
it
Uh,
just it just made me laugh that there's this whole bit where he's basically like, Do not use this to psychoanalyze your friends and family. This is not the purpose of this."
Yeah, he was very, very adamant about this being used for writing, or for good, not evil, basically, which I really appreciated because coming
Use
off,
your powers for good.
yeah, because coming off of Story Genius, she was very much like this is the gospel. You do
Very
this or you fail.
prescriptive, yeah, yeah.
So that's what I liked about this one. It was basically don't try this at home, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Uh, so
And
yeah,
I immediately tried it at home. I'm joking.
I already have tried many of these theories at home, and that was kind of one thing because I was reading through like, oh, that's me, oh, that's
Yes,
me,
because
oh, that's my mother.
he talks a lot about the love languages as well, and I think everyone's talked about that at home in general, as part of like the
Yeah, and
relationship.
also we're going to go through it in detail because I want to talk about some aspects of it later. But yeah, I generally enjoyed reading this. It was a quick read.
Yeah.
I think I can get some use out of this, but I think it's more of a revision thing than a plotting thing for me.
Oh, I was thinking actually that I'd quite like to use it to create characters at the very beginning. Mostly, I often struggle with creating complex villains, so I feel like this book is going to be quite useful for like there's a few passages as well where he mentions himself in order for you to create more complex villains because no one truly does anything that they believe is bad on purpose. Use these bits or these bits. So I'm definitely
Yeah,
going to use that.
but for me, that kind of I don't know because I like to just hammer out the plot in a draft and then go back and like do the characters because that's just how my brain works. So I think
Yeah.
using this for like plotting a novel would be too complicated for me. I would be
Yes.
caught up in the moment. So I
I
think
I just find
definitely,
that it depends how what you do in which order, but I personally try to figure out my characters first and foremost. So that's probably why that would be more useful to me at the beginning. But I can see how that would also be really useful as a revision tool.
yeah, because it's just I don't know. Uh, yeah, I just think this is a revision thing for me because I like to just find my characters and then use this to tune them. I could see myself doing that.
Are you already picturing yourself doing some stuff to your characters in your Black Smoke Rising book, or
Nothing concrete, yes, but I was reading chapters of this and was like, oh, that would fit in with like this narrative or this character, or like,
yeah,
oh, this is how I'm picturing this character to be. So that was very useful,
nice
especially there was because I have like a sibling dynamic. So there was this fun chapter that I'm going to talk a bit about
families and
later
stuff? Yeah,
about family and like how that work in. And I was just I don't know. There was a lot of good stuff in here. I enjoy
yeah.
this overall. We're going to say hello to some people that I did not say hello to 8 minutes ago. We have a Sasha who's looking forward to the stream, but they have to go into the actual office today. You.
Boo.
This is the reason why me and Malin are streaming today, because Malin had to go into the office yesterday.
Yeah, boo. Also.
Michael says going for a walk to the library now, but we'll be here for when you go live. Haven't seen any. Oh, there he is. Welcome back, Michael. I hope the library was bountiful. We have a Flora. Hello. Tuesday's the new Monday. Facts.
Yeah.
Got an Anna. Hello, hello, hello. Yep. Getting a lot of robot. We got an
It's
Emma. Hello,
it's a
hello.
tiny bit back, but I think it's more muffled sounding now. Like if you just move it a bit, maybe I'll fix it.
Oh, I swear to God, why do I put myself through this?
Better. Sorry.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Malin. And hi, Michael. And hi, Anna. We got Inksteady, who recommended this book to us, Kelly,
Yay.
who also wants to know, do we have a recommendation scale? I think we're going to touch base on this later, so stay tuned. Also going to preface by saying that this is going to be a shorter stream because I got stuff to do later. So it's going to be
This is a
about
shorter book, so it fits.
Yeah. It's going to be about an hour stream and there's going to be no sprint, just so we're emotionally prepared for that. But I have prepared some banners. The first thing I want to talk about is theory versus workbook. Did it work the house down boots for you, Malin? Because the way the chapters are structured is that you get the psychology theory in like a little, well, usually just a 3-page moment. And then you also have a workbook section that follows where you can basically work along and create. There's so much like workbook stuff in this book, which
Yeah,
I
every
really
single
appreciate.
chapter has one, which is quite useful.
Did
I
that
have
work for
not
you?
used the workbook, I'll be honest. I did not. Yeah, you're blurred. You're
Yeah,
blurry.
whatever.
I did not try to use the workbook. However, what I did is I like to color code things. That's just the Hermione in me, the Monica in me. But the orange tabs are things that I think are going to be useful for specific cases for me, and so I tab those to remember to like go back to them specifically. While I have most of my purple tabs are for useful in general, but I just don't see a specific case yet. So out of all the tabs I've got, I'd say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orange ones. So there's like 5 specific instances where I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to use this. And I appreciate that he's formulated it as like questions for you to ask yourself about the characters, because it'll be really useful when I get to that point and when I'm like, okay, now that I'm looking at this.
Are you a workbook girly when it comes to like craft and like stuff like that? Because
Yes
a
and
lot of
no.
the books we've read, like actually all of them, Save the Cat and Story Genius, both have workbook sections.
Yes and no. I feel like the examples work better for me. Like when people lay out really good examples of what they've just explained in real stuff that you've read, that works a lot better for me to understand how to use it than sometimes the workbook questions.
Okay, that makes sense.
I just need real grounded stuff, and like then I get it.
Examples also really work for me because that if I know the work, it's easier for me to like kind of visualize what the author is talking about. But I do think that once I've kind of honed in on what theory I want to use for my character, that the workbook will be really useful in like exploring
Yeah.
them or like fleshing them out in a later draft. So I'm a fan of that. So it does work for me. And I also liked how he had structured the novel because he started with the first chapter being like blame the parents, which is the age-old psychology theory. There you go.
Yeah.
And in chapter 1, he talks about messages that we all learn as children, and there's two different type of messages. There's like injunctions and drivers, and like he kind of goes into explaining like how injunctions are the don't messages. Like things that you shouldn't do, so like don't feel, don't belong, don't be you, don't
Every single
make it.
time I read the don't feel, I want to compete it with conceal, don't feel.
Yeah, it's what is giving. Yeah, stuff like that. And the drivers are the more positive messages, so like try hard, hurry up, please, others be perfect, stuff like that. So it goes really into explaining that in chapter 1, and then in chapter 2 he kind of like builds on that, going into, okay, now if you take these messages and flip them, like what does that mean for your characters and how would that look? And I don't
Yeah.
know, I just really, really appreciated the way he structured it. It made it easy to follow. And there was a lot of like technical mumbo jumbo. Like I don't
Yeah.
understand all the like psychology lingo he uses.
But he did a
Uh,
good job of breaking it down in a more vulgarized manner so that the average Joe, like maybe me, can understand what that
yeah,
means. Yeah.
very much.
He also, I appreciate as well that the beginning intro of it is sort of like, you don't have to use all of these. Just pick and choose what really works for you, what would help you specifically. And like you said, it's like a breath of fresh air after reading Story Genius, I guess.
Yeah, she was very absolute
Yeah.
in her craft. Kelly says, yes, blame the parents, the tried and true storytelling component. And as someone who's writing, always for some reason, well, not for some reason, it is known to me, generational trauma into my novels. There's always like parental trauma somewhat in
Yeah.
my novel, which
I'd
I think is
say
just, yeah,
similarly to you, probably, I really enjoyed the injunction stuff, and I feel like that's going to be really useful for my characters. And the family stuff in general, like the systemic things, and how, as you're part of a system, then families, other people can, try to make you stay in the status quo. I just immediately pictured High School Musical singing the status quo song as
picture
well.
the status quo, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
but these I think would
Um,
be really useful for specific characters of mine, for sure.
yeah, and I think that's kind of why I think this is a revision book because you have written a character, so you have like a sense of a character, maybe not a grasp on them, but like you know what you want out of the characters, so it's easier to
Yeah.
read through this and go like, oh, this sounds like what I'm going for.
Yes,
Pick that.
but I would use it as a revision book for some of my characters, but then for others, now that I'm trying to become more of an outlining girly, I could use this at the beginning after I've done my outline and
She
wanted to figure
truly
it out.
is entering her new era.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated the way that the book was structured, and it
Yeah.
made sense to me, and it was kind of easy to follow. And I can see this becoming very dry very fast because no tea, no shade to Lisa Crom. That's kind of what I felt about the intro to Story Genius. I was like, okay, I'm bored. Just give me
Yeah.
the writing craft. But for this, I was like, okay, this makes sense.
Yes. And I like that it is a short book, but that means there's no fluff and you don't have to worry about, I appreciate that in some cases, some people might prefer having a ton of examples, but sometimes it's a bit overloading it with examples that you're just like, I just need to know what I can get back to. How, like, if I'm struggling with a character, can I open this book, very easily find what I'm looking for and just fix my issue?
Yeah. But yeah, I also thought, because I wrote the bachelor thesis on communication for my nursing degree, and he mentions it's in like one of the earlier chapters, he like mentions the "No man is an island" quote,
Yeah.
which I used for my bachelor thesis, and I was like, oh, where was this when I was writing my bachelor thesis? This would have been so helpful. But I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to dive into your favorite theory.
Ooh. Okay. Let me just have a quick look at the chapter titles because I didn't.
I can go first if you want,
Yeah.
because
Tell me first what your favorite one is.
Yeah, I mean, no tea, no shade. Like the first chapter was just stellar for me. The blame the parents. As someone who writes a lot about parental trauma, it was just kind of. I mean, because a lot of this knowledge, I feel like we know, or like it's societally known, but you don't really see it structured in a way that makes it, at least for me, easily digestible, or kind of like fucking Zoom. So yeah, the first chapter. Blame the Parents, really good. I also really loved, I think that's the last one where he talks about shadow, me and my shadow.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting. Yeah.
That was kind of just, I liked the dichotomy of that. Having kind of, that.
I feel like there's a few that would be useful to me, but probably the one that I enjoy the most is the flip the script one. So the second one after the blame the parents, where I think there's a few, I have like a couple of orange tabs there. So I'm just going to consider the ones that would be the most useful as my favorite. But I like basically he talks about how, some people believe they have a life script in their mind where they're like, okay, I can only be happy when I've achieved this, or I can never be happy because of that, or I can never meet someone who's going to be good to me because of this. They have a certain script that they live to, and it's sort of makes me think of self prophecies, which I guess is like a different term to sort of talk about that. And one, that's definitely things I've seen / experienced in real life, and two,
True. That's what I felt like reading a lot of this. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
just gonna gloss past that one.
And two, I feel like that would be really useful for the way that I build my characters. I feel like a lot of the time they have those types of issues that sort of are their main misbelief, or which fits really nicely into the Save the Cat stuff. So that's probably my favorite one.
This is like a really good companion to Save the Cat, I feel like.
Yeah,
Like
it's sort of like
Save the Cat for plot and this for characters.
Yeah,
this is a good one. So I highly recommend this one. I really liked the flip the script one too. There was a point where they talk about how we behave and react to the world is often less about what is actually happening than it is about what is we already believe. So basically, there's this quote from Desperate Housewives and probably somewhere else too, but Bree Vanderkamp, I don't know if you're familiar with the show or the material, but Bree Vanderkamp once says reality is perception, and she's very much that kind of gal. Very much like the everything looks perfect on the inside, but there's a lot of cracks in the house.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting, and that kind of resonated with the character I'm currently writing, because he has this whole worldview, so his entire experience is colored by that, no matter what like the objective facts are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting.
I do like the example in it as well when he talks about Tyrion in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
As the example for that one specific, how he developed the life script of never, because he believes that he will never gain what he truly wants, the acceptance and love of his father, until he decides to gain the acceptance of love of someone greater, better than his father. And that's when he flips his own script. And I was like, that is such a good example that I can visualize. So I'm
Yeah.
happy that the examples he's given are really useful, I find.
Yeah, definitely was a quick read. It was. I think it took me a long time to sit down and read it, but when I did, it was like a 2-day job. Taking a little longer because I was doing notes as I was reading it.
It
But
was a
yeah.
1-day job for me. I just yesterday to train reading.
Hello, 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 Andy. Welcome to this craft stream. We're talking about the Psychology Workbook for writers. But yeah, those were our favorite theories. What's your least favorite one?
The Myers-Briggs.
Same. I was like, this is
You call
not it.
yourself a psychologist and you're using the Myers. It pissed me
It
off.
was literally just because the source citing for that chapter was just like the Myers-Briggs test. I'm like,
I sort of
okay,
feel like it could have
this,
been good if he'd included it as like, board of semi-psychology theories. You could use this to create a character with a caveat of this is not used in real life psychology because this was created by a mom who wanted to make sure that her future son-in-law was an asshole because she didn't like him. So she wanted to prove it. It's
yeah,
so
it was giving not it for me. I just thought, you don't belong here. What are you
yeah,
doing here, Ariana?
yeah,
It's what it
exactly.
was giving.
Yeah,
There also
agreed.
was another one, the love chapter, and I don't know because you're writing a romance, so I don't know if you kind of grabbed onto that one.
The love
But
language one.
love language one, yes, where they talk about the different love languages. But the one I found more interesting was what he referred to as John Gottman's Four Horsemen of the Relationship
Yes,
Apocalypse.
I had
I
never
never
heard
heard
of
about
that.
it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I was like, stealing that.
Yes.
But basically, in that section, he talks about the four horsemen of the relationship apocalypse, which is I guess it's the antithesis to the love languages.
I love this because I had never heard of that theory before. And it's actually so much more important to be aware of these. Not that we're meant to use this in real life. We're not. We're
No,
not. But
nope.
but
But
you can like TikTok girlies constantly talk about love languages, but no one ever talks about the four horsemen of the relationships. So
yeah, and
and I
if you're
have
wondering, the
like
four horsemen are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling.
it's so good. It's so like I never knew about these. And they're
I'm gonna steal that and put it in my novel because I have this.
yeah.
I needed friction in my relationship for the story, so I'm just like, let me just take that.
And
Uh,
also, I think what's really useful in that chapter is that apart from the love languages, stuff that I found interesting was how it's very much about any relationship. It's not meant to specifically be just about love. Like, obviously, you have relationships with other people than your partner, your romantic partner, right? And I have two characters, my main character and sort of like a toxic best friend that she has in Project Rose at the beginning of the story, and their relationship deteriorates throughout the whole book until my main character realizes that she's better than being treated like crap. So I feel like I could definitely use these elements into that. And I was really excited about like, oh, I could use these into any relationships, not just, loved ones.
yeah, it works also friends wise, and I have this kind of friction relationship between my siblings in my novel too, in my cowboy novel. So, that was one of like
Yeah.
whatever money I paid for this, I was like, okay, John Gottman's Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse theory
Was
was
worth
worth
it.
every penny I paid. So that was a really interesting time. But yeah, I agree with you. My least favorite was the Myers-Briggs chapter,
Yeah.
which two pages just describing the Myers-Briggs test, and then that's it.
I'm just
And I,
checking if I have anywhere else where I've put I wasn't interested. I think I
uh,
sort of put I wasn't interested in the pieces of me chapter. Um, which is actually that is the systemic one, the no man is an island. But it wasn't because I didn't think it was useful. It was more so when like I feel like in real life that is a very interesting theory that is very useful and accurate. The fact that you don't make a decision based on one thing, you have loads of parts of you that help you make that decision. Like for instance, currently I'm not happy in my job, however another part of me is very aware that I have a mortgage to pay. Another part of me is also like I have really liked this job so far for this or this reason. Another part of me, etc., right?
yeah, that was a bit wishy-washy for me because
It's
it's
like
like it was giving Circle of Life, and I'm like, okay, what's the
it's
point?
To me, I actually didn't feel like that one was useful for writers because when you write a character, you have to make them slightly simpler. Because if you do write someone like a real life person constantly with all of those complex emotions and changes in their minds and complex thoughts, they read almost too complicated for a reader. I feel like you have to simplify them a little bit, give them more of a gimmick sometimes. I don't know. That's how I might be
Yeah.
wrong. I'm not an expert, but
I mean, we're not experts, but Darian Smith claims to be one, and judging by degrees, he has some. So that's why we're talking about his craft book. I also want to talk a little bit about the last chapter, which was, well, actually, the second to last one was kind of funny, where he talks about, what do you call it? There's a little bit in all of us, where he just basically says, oh, there's a theory in psychology that says that everyone has elements of psychological disorder within their makeup.
yeah, I thought
And I
that
was
was
like, oof,
interesting too. Yeah,
too real, Bessie, too real.
got an orange tab on that one.
Oh, wow, okay.
See,
And then chapter 11, Me and My Shadow, I thought was really interesting because
yeah,
he says, or he talks about how every character should have a secret part that they are ashamed of.
that's
Uh,
like a 2 pages chapter as well. It was so short, but it's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
And he mentioned this guy called Carl Jung who described this theory as like
just this guy.
person,
This guy's
as a,
no one's ever heard of Carl Jung.
yeah,
Like
just a
this
person as the
random
shadow
dude.
self, which means that, well, he said it's a vital part for writers to understand about the characters. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But now I will think about it. But he basically says that characters have shadows, which are like their negative traits.
The
So
ones
like,
they don't even want to acknowledge, like they're
yeah,
too.
the ones they don't like know about or acknowledge, like, hints of manipulationness, the cowardliness. He mentions racism, like,
And
um,
And basically, what I love about that is the part where he's saying, like, you'll often see the traits of your shadow self in other people more so. Like, that's the part you're going to criticize the most about others. And I've always heard it really makes me think of, like, just as a practical, advice in general, people who say, like, always listen to what people are apologizing for because that's the things they hate in others. It's they don't want others to do that. So, like, if someone is constantly apologizing for being late, if you're late, they're going to hate that you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Constantly apologize for interrupting people, and then I hate when people interrupt me. So
Yeah.
it's the kettle calling the kettle kettle.
So but that's the thing. It's like it's the projection thing, right? That he's talking about how
Yeah, how did you phrase it? Like, basically, what what negative or like what your shadow trait self is what you'll find annoying in others.
yeah.
So I agree with Kelly. The shadow chapter was one of my favorites as well. I also love the romance one, as I said earlier. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Anna
Agreed.
says, great point, Malin. People love a consistent personality in characters, almost overly so. I totally agree with that, Malin. Characters that aren't a bit simplified get really exhausting to read. Like, it's enough to have to keep track of my own complex and contradicting feelings. Thanks. I can't do all that work when I'm reading too.
Yeah, that must be
Yeah,
right. I feel
I
that.
once saw someone say, well, saw a TikTok, so I once read in a newspaper, I guess, someone saying that you shouldn't write realistic dialogue. That's not the goal. I was like, oh, but that's what you hear people say.
Yeah.
But, you shouldn't write realistic dialogues. And I also think you shouldn't write realistic humans. You should write realistic characters. And those are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
agreed. And I feel like I've seen that advice as well because yeah, just us talking right now, I think I've said the word yeah 5 times within the same
I say a
sentence.
lot of ums,
That would be so
yeah,
boring to read, right? Like
yeah. So I think that's some good advice. The next one is, we talked a little bit about this, but have you or will you apply this book to your own writing?
So the chapters that I'm definitely going to apply are the first one, which I did tag because I would love to use this as almost a guide to create a character at the beginning and be like, what injunctions do they have from their background? And it sort of can dictate a lot of things about who their family is and why would they have learned that and everything. So that's going to be one I'm 1,000% going to use. Really enjoyed that.
That's fun.
Um, the Definitely the flip the script in general, I tagged as well. And the last one I had tagged was the one you mentioned earlier. There's a little bit in all of us with the
Disorders.
theory that we all have a little bit of a
mental
Um,
illness.
yeah, a little bit of a what would you call like a disorder? It
Uh,
in
yeah,
us.
he phrased it as like, what was it? Everyone has elements of psychological disorders within their
Yeah,
makeup or something. Yeah,
yeah.
that was fun.
Because the examples were quite useful in that one as well. I could see like the way he's like, yeah, in Friends, Monica is an example of she's got a bit of OCD, but she's still a highly functioning individual. Like it doesn't debilitate her in any way. Like she still functions totally normally. It's not like it's a problem where she has to go see someone about it, but she does have a little bit of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Wendy says, meanwhile, I'm always making my characters too complicated because that's one of the things I love about humans from a spectator perspective. I mean, I'm not saying you can't have complex characters, but
But
you
it's
shouldn't
more
write
about the
complex humans.
consistent. To me, it's more about like that chapter made me feel like you were saying you got to be remember that people are thinking sometimes this, sometimes that, sometimes this, so they might make inconsistent decisions. While I feel like people enjoy it more when a character is being consistent in the way that they behave, but obviously they can still be complex. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm talking about like complex characters. I like that, but you're not writing complex humans.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense. And also notice he keep referring to characters as persons in this novel, which I thought was funny because he was so adamant in the beginning, like this is for characters, this is not for people.
yeah.
And yet he kept referring to people throughout the novel, which I guess makes sense, but I just thought it was funny.
That made me laugh as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think I will apply this to my own writing. I see, as I said, I think this is like a revision book for me where I, after I finish a draft, can sit down and go like, okay, what do I want from this character? Like, how does he work? What makes him him? And then I can flip through this and kind of figure out how to build the relationships and,
Yeah.
his view on the world around him. And I think that'll be really useful. So definitely will use this for my own writing.
I do love a bit of generational trauma in characters, as you said. So
I do love a bit of drama in my characters. I see that we have actually got some time, so I think we're going to do a short sprint anyway,
ooh,
even
okay.
though I said we weren't going to do one. Um,
It is a short book.
it is a short book, so we'll be doing a short sprint to accompany that. Kelly says, I am applying this shadow chapter to a fun, not science story that will be a complete rewrite. I'm going to be using it a lot for the female main
Ooh.
character. Ooh, sprint. Andy has demanded cheese. Gaze, not gaze. Well, I guess kind of gaze, but more like the Taylor Swift gaze.
It's a good one.
I like it.
Yes, yes, mommy. Yes, mom.
Yes, mommy.
That went so fast.
It was 13 minutes or something. How did you do?
Good. I used that time to continue, almost finished editing my first actual video of the year that I still have not posted on the 30th of January, even though it's about my channel goals for the year. So again, once again, January does not exist. It's a fake month. It's a write-off.
It's a write-off. I think that's a good way of looking at it. And I started making little notes in a character sheet from the book about my main character from a cover project.
Nice.
So that when it comes time for revisions, I'll have something to go off of. I've
That's
been
good.
making a continuous editorial note as I've been writing, like, oh, I'm just putting it in and then like change this later or like make that instead of this or
Yeah, that's
stuff like
that's how
that.
I work as well, to be fair. When I'm revising, I tend to read what I've done and just like, or even if I'm aware of something as I'm writing it, I just like to do little bullet point notes in a Notion page specifically dedicated to that so that I know, okay, I can then look back and I have something to start from and it's not from scratch.
Yeah. We were also joined by a Violet. Hi, sorry I'm late. I actually read the book. I'm so proud of you.
That feels
What did
like
you think of it?
that's such a student thing to say. That's just a cool thing to say.
Did we have homework today? But yeah, what did you think of it, Violet? Call in. And we're also joined by a cool gamer. Hello, hello, hello. Let's see. Kelly worked on some art and listened to a new audiobook. Maybe a DNF for me, though.
Oof.
Ooh, what book is it? Call in. January is a trial run.
Yes, 100%. And also, I feel like it's good that you already know that you're maybe gonna DNF that book. I feel like I need to do that more often now and just learn to stop and not continue for the sake of it.
I even stopped reading books I do like, so I think my goal for the year is going to be to read books that I've started but not finished, but I want to finish. So like Frankenstein, and then also Song of Achilles. Is that a book? What's it called? Yeah,
Yes, Song of
Song of
Achilles. Yeah,
Achilles. I've started. We've
I
always lived
mean,
in a castle.
you might enjoy it. I don't know whether it's something you I mean, I don't know. I think you were co-reading it, but Frankenstein, I didn't like. But that's just because it's not a horror book and it's not a sci-fi book, even
I
though it
liked
is
it.
technically the birth of sci-fi and all of that. It's philosophical. It's a philosophy,
Yeah,
and I fucking hate philosophy.
and
So
it's so thin, so I could probably just finish it, but I just never did. Um, Violet says it wasn't the best audio, TBH. Oh, okay.
oh, did
I
you
have
listen to it? Yeah.
I have physical copies, so
Yeah, I would recommend it as physical format for sure. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as audiobook because I would have needed to go back a lot to pay attention because
oof.
it's so quick. It's very fast paced that if you didn't pay attention to something, you just it's gone. It's gone forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like to have a physical copy of all the craft books I have just
Yeah.
because I like to just pick up and look through them. Kelly says John C. Maxwell's The 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. Hoping it would help me more with socializing, but I don't know. I feel like the man's voice may not be for me. I'll keep you all updated. Please do.
Yeah, the voice in audiobooks is really
Very
important.
important. I will
I
literally listen to nothing but whatever's narrated with Rosamund Pike.
I just finished reading The Wager, mostly in audiobook, but I like to sometimes go. It also has a lot of images in there of like the ships and stuff. This is nonfiction, but the narrator's voice was so like almost ASMR-esque, like a bit of a
Oh,
Morgan Freeman type of voice. I don't know how to explain
yes.
it. It's just perfect. It was
The
so
voice
good.
of
It
God.
was really good. And it's on Spotify, which I already pay premium for, so I didn't need to use any credits on Audible or anything.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well, we are just about going to wrap up with a few finishing questions. Who is this book for? I always ask that. Who do you
This
think
book
this
is
book is for,
for
Malin?
writers and not your friends. It is not to analyze your.
True that, true that.
It's
But what
also
type of writer is this for?
it's good for writers like me who struggle a bit more with character building and want to use that into the plot making. So it's more that side of things. Yeah.
I agree. This is good for someone who's a plotter and not a character writer, which is me. I love plot, but not so good with the characters. I can come up with basic concepts, but
Yeah.
as Derek says in The Swan Princess, what more is there?
Also, I would actually argue that it's good for anyone because a lot of the things I had never thought of, thinking about for my characters, like I had never thought, okay, I need to know about this, I need to figure this out. So it just made me discover new things that I think would be useful for anyone who's writing.
Except the Myers-Briggs test, that's a scam.
Yes, don't look at that.
Well, yeah, that's who this book is for. Any final thoughts?
I am very happy that it was a short book, and yeah, that's my thoughts. Write more short craft books. Get to the point. We're not here for the story of how your grandma made that apple pie. We're here for the recipe of the apple pie. So yeah.
And this is very much a recipe book, which I can appreciate. It was very fast, quick read, applicable. I can see myself looking up theories that I want to implement, and only having to read 5 pages to figure out what's going on. It's very nice.
Are we getting another suggestion for a short craft book?
This is probably next month's book. Yeah, in February, Kelly will be on my channel. I'm so sorry, Malin, but you'll be voted off the island.
I already knew this, I think.
Yes, the next book is going to be Romancing the Beat by
I've
some
already
lady
read it, to be fair.
called Gail, I think.
I've already read it, so I will. You're going to do it on
Gwen
Monday.
Gwen Hayes, yeah. Yeah, it's probably going to be a Monday.
Damn it. Because there might be a Monday I'm not in the office, because I want to watch and comment, because I've read it.
We haven't set a date yet, but it'll be me and Kelly. Violet said last time, I think, that there's a bunch of free resources that you can look up instead of buying the book. I'm going to buy the book because I like having a physical copy, and it's only $12, and I want to support Gwen.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to buy the book, but you don't have to. There's plenty of spreadsheets. There's, Romancing the Beat. We get Romancing the Beat. Let's find a picture so people can actually see what's going on.
Here you go.
That's the very, very book we're talking about. That was a tiny picture, but yeah, that's the one we're reading.
And it is 80 pages as well.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. It's true. I have the Scrivener template. So yeah, we're going to read Romancing the Beat. Seemed fitting for February. Don't know when the stream will be. It'll be up in my channel. Maybe tomorrow, maybe one day from the stream, like today's stream was that I put up yesterday. But yeah, that's going to be in next month's book. If you have any suggestions for books you would like me to read and talk about with a guest, call in. I'm very much open to suggestions.
If Kelly at some point you want to dive into marketing books and read Newsletter Ninja, I'd be open to it.
My philosophy is that, when I'm drafting, I'm reading draft books, and then when I'm getting into marketing for my book, I'll read marketing books.
Yes, but it could be like a later in the year book. If at some point you have a lull and you're like, I'm finished with the current draft and I don't really want to look at it anymore.
Do that, because I'm thinking I want to read a few more kind of plot character books. So I want to read Romancing the Beat is probably going to be the last plot book I read. And then I want to dive into revision books, hopefully, if God is good. So I'll try and read Anatomy of a Prose by Dr. Black, for example, which is very much a revision book.
Yes, which I also have and have only read half of it, so I should read the other half.
Kelly, as always, has more suggestions. I also have read Newsletter Ninja, and I have thoughts, Malin. I'm curious about what you think.
Well, I've not read it yet, so yeah.
Yeah, but I heard good things about it.
But when people say I have thoughts, usually it's negative, because that's why
I have thoughts.
I have thoughts.
Yeah. But thank you so much for being here, Malin, talking about the Psychology Workbook for writers. Thank you so much for being in the chat. Thank you for all the lovely comments. I'll be back to Monday streams in February, maybe. I promise 70%. We'll have to see. I might switch day because Monday is usually really busy. So, but yeah, that was our thoughts on the Psychology Workbook for writers. I recommend it. Malin recommend it. It's for people who want to write characters, which is most writers, I think. Question mark. And that's going to be it. Well, some books are there's a book about a park bench that I've read, so
Right, and also we're not non-fiction writers here in general, I guess. So that's also why. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. Sorry for a short sprint. Toodaloo, I guess.